Hey, all right, let's continue along. No intro, okay, fine. I would still do the introduction, but no intro. Paradoxical dynamics in the construction of God's sanctuary. 3 types of donations. Number 1, commenting on the opening verses of this week's Torah reading, our sages state 3 types of offerings. Terumah are mentioned in this passage: the offering for the sockets that held the boards of the sanctuary, the offering of the shekalim, the coins used to purchase the communal sacrifices, and the offerings of the materials with which the sanctuary was constructed. As is well known, there's a difference between the offering of the shekalim and offerings given for the sockets and the sanctuary as a whole. The commandment to donate to purchase the communal sacrifices was incumbent on the that time, and also served as a positive commandment for future generations that every male of the children of Israel give a half a shekel every year for the communal sacrifices. Learn this, and this is coming out of the book of Exodus, 25th chapter, verses 2 through 3, which says, "Speak to the children of Israel and have them take for me an offering. You shall take my offering. This is the offering that you shall take from them." The word terumah, offering, is mentioned 3 times before. There were 3 types of offerings, and this is talking about Rambam and Hilkos Shekalim 1:1. During the time of the Beis HaMikdash, moreover, even present era, hey, let's at least get through number 1. When the Beis HaMikdash is not standing, in a universal custom among the Jewish people to read the passage mentioning the donation of the shekalim in synagogues on the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh Adar as a remembrance of the Beis HaMikdash. The reading was instituted at that time because during the era of the Beis HaMikdash, on the 1st of Adar, announcement was made regarding donating the shekalim. Furthermore, there are authorities who say that a half of the standard coin of the current local currency should be given to tzedakah before Purim as a remembrance of the half shekel that was given in Adar. And that's out of the Shulchan Aruch 694:1, saying here, by contrast, there was an obligation to donate for the sockets only before the building of the sanctuary, and the obligation to donate for the sanctuary as a whole applied only at that time and before the building of the Beis HaMikdash. It says here that the obligation to donate to the construction of the sanctuary and the Beis HaMikdash is mentioned by Rambam and Hilkos Beis Habakira 1:12 and other sources. And this is the offering. This teaches us that the Holy One, blessed be He, showed Moses 3 offerings: one for the sanctuary, one for the first Beis HaMikdash, and one for the second Beis HaMikdash, alluded to by the words gold, silver, and brass. Gold alluding to the sanctuary, silver to the first Beis HaMikdash, and brass to the second Beis HaMikdash. The Midrash Haggadol to this passage, however, derives this concept differently, stating, why does Torah state an offering, the offering, and my offering in one context? One for the sanctuary, one for the first Beis HaMikdash, and one for the second Beis HaMikdash. For Rambam's wording, it appears that every man and woman was individually obligated to help in the construction of Mikdash, as they were obligated to participate in the construction of the sanctuary, which includes a donation for the sockets. That obligation was not merely incumbent on the house of the generous heart. This concept appears to be a novel interpretation of Rambam, which, as of yet, I have not found explicitly stated in any other source. It says a further point should be noted that the construction of the Beis HaMikdash is among the mitzvahs that the Jewish community as a collective and not on every individual. So back inside a little bit more here, it says, nevertheless, since the Torah is eternal, according to Tanya in chapter 17, applying at all times and in all places, it follows that these 2 types of donations, those for the sockets and those for the sanctuary as a whole, are relevant to our divine service at present as well. The universal and eternal relevance of the Torah applies to every particular element and field of Torah study. How much more so does it apply with regard to the details of the sanctuary about which it is written? In Shemot 25:8, I will dwell within a verse on which our sages commented, which is weird this week when we talk about the within them as opposed to within it. The verse does not say bisacho within it, but rather bisacham within them, which is the point that is being brought out on Malava Malka and the portions of light, i.e., within every member of the Jewish people. The intent is that the divine presence be revealed and drawn down within the soul of every member of the Jewish people in every place and every time through his or her divine service. Accordingly, just as the building of the sanctuary in the physical sense was made possible through the donation described above, so too the spiritual sanctuary within every Jew is brought about through divine service. That is the spiritual parallel of these donations, uniformity and variation. Let's see if we can make it through one more page, just real quick. Every thrust should be of benefit to us. The divine service corresponding to the donations for the sockets and those for the sanctuary as a whole can be understood by clarifying the manner in which these donations were given in the actual construction of the sanctuary. All those commanded participated in the donations. For the sockets, giving a uniform amount, half a shekel. By contrast, every Jew donated to the construction of the sanctuary as a whole, according to the generosity of his heart, giving as much as he or she desired, as related in Parshas Vayikil, in the 35th chapter, 21st verse of Exodus, which we'll be getting to. The parallels in our divine service can be explained as follows. The donation for the sockets corresponds to the bittul and Kabbalah soul, this the acceptance of God's yoke that stem from the essence of the soul. All Jews are equal with regard to these obligations. It's saying that the service of Kabbalah soul involves accepting the yoke of God's services regardless of one's understanding, feeling, or personal desires. The potential to do so stems from the essence of the soul that's fundamentally an actual part of God, and tying it to this level, there exists no difference between one Jew and another, which is very interesting because intellectually, as I'm taking a look this morning, there's these different ways that we can serve God, fear and love, or abad. There's even different versions of the CHASSIDUS and CHASSIDUS, if you will. And so these emotive attributes or these intellectual attributes are coming into play, but different people have different ones, making them properly a quote to this particular type of divine service. But in this morning, what we're learning here is Kabbalah So'ol and Bittul, and I don't want to add to the words. I would say Panemius Atayra Mamish, that the Bittul and the Kabbalah soul, what the Sikha is saying is that this is evident in all Jews, regardless of our intellectual capability. The donations for the construction of the sanctuary as a whole correspond to a person's divine service with his individual intellect and emotional faculties. And the exercise of these faculties, there is a wide range of variation depending on each person's spiritual standing, each person's generosity of heart, the refinement of his character traits through his labor and with his mind and heart differs from that of another. On this basis, it can be understood why the donation given uniformly by half shekel was specifically used for the sockets, while the curtains and implements of the sanctuary were made from the donations depending on every person's individual generosity, you see. The sockets were the lowest element of the sanctuary, yet simultaneously served as the foundation for it in its entirety. They were the base upon which the boards and the remainder of the sanctuary stood. The parallel to the sockets in a person's divine service is Kabbalah soul. And the mimer that we learn that in is Hayasheves Beganim. True in a revealed manner, godly light is not felt in the service of Kabbalah soul to the same degree as it is felt through the inner services of the mind and the heart. So we find in Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah with regard to the divine service of a simple servant, when a person refines his mind and heart through divine service, he makes them more sensitive to receive godly light. By contrast, when a person accepts God's will with Kabbalah soul, he does not refine his mind and heart. Rather, he transcends his own reasonings and feelings. However, it is the foundation and starting point for all divine service. As we learn in Tanya at the beginning of chapter 41, therefore, all those who donate the same amount for the sockets, implication is that There is no difference between one Jew and another with regard to the fundamental and all-inclusive service of Kabbalah, soul, and Bittul, rooted in the essence of the soul. When looking at the essence of the soul, all Jews are identical, and we all share one Father, as we learn in China 30, in the 32nd chapter. By contrast, the parallel within a person's soul to the other elements of the sanctuary, the boards, the curtains, and the like, is divine service with the individual powers of the soul. For example, the boards were 10 cubits high, alluding to the Kakos Panemium, the inner powers of the person's soul. Kakos Panemium, according to Tikkuni Zohar and Tikkun number 19, these inner powers, this Kokos Panemium, refer to the full range of a person's intellectual and emotional capacities, as we learn in Tanya chapter 3, which discusses the classification of these capacities as 10 powers. They are referred to as panemiim, inner, because they are identified with organs within a person's body. The heart and the brain can be controlled by a person's conscious mind, and the curtains, which were placed as the roof of the sanctuary, oh man. Allude to the soul's encompassing powers, these kokos makafim, and this encompassing powers, which we also were talking about on last Friday in Mavamalka, about this encompassing. The first time this came out was in the, let me see, the Solvev Kolamim and the Mamali Kolamim. This encompassing powers, these kokos makafim, refer to powers like will and pleasure and faith, which are called encompassing, because A, they do not relate to any specific organ of the body, but rather to the person as a totality, and B, they're not under the control of the person's conscious mind. Since one person's power of will, thought, and feeling do not resemble those of another, it is understood that there will be a corresponding difference in the manner and level of divine service manifested by each person as befitting the nature of his character. Accordingly, the nature of the donations made to the sanctuary varied from person to person. We're grateful for the Lakute Sikos. We'll continue at number 3 tomorrow, okay? Or in a few minutes here once we wrap up what we need to do.